Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Today we're drinking CODY ROAD RYE whiskey. What's up everybody? I'm the Drink Pro, Kyle, here with you yet again. Thank you guys so much for liking, commenting, sharing this video with your friends. Please subscribe to the channel. It makes a big difference. I know a big portion of my viewers are not subscribed. If you subscribe, it makes a huge difference in helping me achieve my goal of making this channel maybe even a full-time career, or at the very least a sustainable hobby. More sustainable than it is right now. This is not cheap, unfortunately. Speaking of not cheap, please consider joining the Patreon if you want some bonus content. You're going to get merch, you're going to get tasting samples, you're going to get all kinds of cool things that are only available at patreon.com/thedrinkpro. Enough shameless plugs now, though. Let's start drinking some whiskey. Today, we've got a fun little pour of CODY ROAD RYE whiskey. Now, couple fun things about this. First off, it's an airplane bottle. I don't know if I've reviewed any airplane bottles yet. These little 50 milliliter guys are not being made by a lot of big brands. By big brands, things you know and have heard of don't come in this size. Well, this small distillery is making 50 milliliter airplane bottles, and I think that's pretty cool. Now, CODY ROAD RYE is being made by the Mississippi River Distilling Company, and they make a lot of different spirits if you check out their website. I was actually kind of impressed because I had never heard of them before, but their website's pretty robust. They've got a lot of different cool stuff that they're making. The reason this is called CODY ROAD is there's a man named William Cody, aka Buffalo Bill, who was born in LeClaire, Iowa, which is the same place that this distillery exists today. One of the things I really like about what the Mississippi River Distilling Company is doing is they are really focusing on everything being in-house. They're doing what's called grain to glass. I like the grain to glass even though it's kind of buzzwordy because it means they're focusing on every part of the process individually. They go pick out the grains and buy the grains. They cook the grains and make the beer. They distill it down. They age it. They barrel it. They bottle it. They do everything. Any part of the whiskey making process is done in-house. And maybe it's just my control freak inside. I love seeing other control freaks do their thing, but I think it's really cool to see somebody going grain to glass. It's very hard to do that and make good product, so we'll see if this stands up. Since we're talking about buzzwords and grain to glass and trendy things, I'll also say that 100% of the grain being purchased by the Mississippi River Distilling Company is being purchased within, I think, 20 miles? Within 25 miles of the distillery. So that's kind of fun too that they're buying all their grain locally. Dave and Jim Wary in Fulton, Iowa are making the rye that goes into this whiskey, which I think is really cool that they have specific people, they're buying their grains and they're making it into whiskey. I think it's Waterford is the company, maybe Waterfield, I can't remember. There's a company that's doing that in Scotland that's doing sort of specific grain into whiskey processes, but I hadn't heard of an American company doing that until these guys. Oh, and one other thing, since I'm on this long kick of one other things and interesting facts, this stuff is kosher, and it has a little label on it that says CRC Kosher 148. I'm pretty sure CRC is the Chicago Rabbinical Council, and I made this big deal about the Chicago Rabbinical Council working with Buffalo Trace to make those kosher products. These guys have already done it. They've been doing it. Oh yeah, let's do this. Airplane bottles are airplane bottles are dangerous because you can do stupid stuff with them. All right, this stuff's 2 years old. It's 45% alcohol. Love the crack on an airplane bottle. I'm making a total mess. Such a mess. Oh boy. Oh, I was giving them so much positive praise and then I smelled it. Boy, this stuff smells very young. That's what I'll say generously. It is only 2 years old, which is young, but it's getting better, but it's still very young. A lot of the rye grain. I pretty much only smell grain. I smell ethanol and I smell grain. So I'm going to say something that sounds kind of like a diss, but it's actually really high praise. This smells like young MGP rye to me. I think that's a really good thing. Because these guys are not contract distilling, they're not sourcing, they're doing everything in-house. So if you can make a product that's even close to the same as something from a company as big with as many resources as MGP, you're doing freaking good. That said, I'm not a big fan of 2-year-old MGP products. And this is 100% rye that smells a lot like a 2-year-old MGP rye. It's young, it's bright, it's a little ethanol-y, it's a little new-makey. It just smells kind of like fermented grains instead of these interesting, unique, nuanced flavors that come from all the esters and different chemicals that are in the barrels and in the mashes and in the distillate that takes time to come out and present itself. Specifically in the barrels, you really need time in a barrel to get a lot of cool, unique flavors out of the wood. This just hasn't had time to do that. Although I will say, you know, the rye grain is nice. It's a nice rye smell. Very much like a rye bread. There's a little bit of a citrusy component, a little bit of lemon probably. When I first cracked this and poured it, I hated it. But it very quickly has become a very solid smelling rye. It just smells young, and it's 100% rye, which isn't usually my jam, but hold for siren. I'm really not getting very much on the nose of this, so let's go ahead and take a taste and see if I can't pull more notes from tasting it or after tasting it. Sometimes once you taste a whiskey and you go back to the smell, you can pull some better notes. You know what? That's really good. It's really solid. And, you know, I think 45 is the right proof on this. The fact that they're blending this and not doing single barrels is probably the right decision as well. It is young. It needs more time, but I think this is why I like the grain to glass process, is it gives you so much control that if you're obsessive enough, you can make a really good product. See, this whiskey is a good example of why I like grain to glass processes, because if you're obsessive enough, you can make something that's really fantastic. Now, unfortunately, because you're doing things that way, you have to release it early, you have to make some pretty young distillate and put a 2-year rye on the market, which most people aren't going to like, may rub people the wrong way, but they're making such good distillate, and it's being aged for a short amount of time, everything going the right way, using all the right processes, that even at 2 years, this is good. It's not my favorite rye in the world. It's not the most complex and the most unique, but it's a solid rye. And for a 2-year pour from a small, unknown distillery, that's freaking amazing. I would tell you right now, I would put this rye up against any 2-year-old MGP with the same mash bill. And like I said, I think 45% is the right proof for this because it does need to be blended. It can't be a single barrel. It does need to be proofed down to take off some of the rough edges, but I'm really impressed with what these guys are doing. And the more I keep sipping on it, the sweeter the rye notes are. And on the nose, I'm starting to get little hints of that vanilla which will come out of the wood. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm really impressed with this. I expected this to be bad, frankly. I don't like young, I don't like rye, and it's a small craft distillery, which already gives me a bit of pause, because usually the big guys can make it better because they make a ton of it and they can pick out the good stuff and sell that and blend away the bad stuff into their cheap whiskeys. But that grain to glass, when done right, when being obsessive, can be fantastic. And I think that's what's happening here. These guys have just obsessed about how to make things well, and every step of the process is being monitored. And they made a really good rye that's 2 years old. And it's kosher. L'chaim. I don't think I've said this yet. Thank you so much, Kyle Thai, for providing this sample. Big thanks, especially because I didn't think I would like this. And I really like this. So nicely done, sir. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. But if you see CODY Road, I'd pick it up because I don't know what the price point is on this. I'll be honest. But because it's so good and it's very young, I want to support these guys. So I say this is an unequivocal buy. Even if you're not a big rye fan, because I'm not a big rye fan, and I like this. If you want to have a rye on your shelf, even if you don't love rye, you should have a rye on your shelf. And this is a good, young, lower proof rye. If you want a big, bombastic rye, get something higher proof than this. But this could make a really freaking good Manhattan, for example. But for right now, I'm going to finish this pour and get back to work. So you all keep drinking like professionals, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.